Hello, Van Gurus. This is your fellow Van Guru, Alan Klein here. Doing some quick as possible training. I'm going to try and keep it as brief and succinct as possible. Training on follow up. Quickly going to run through the reason for training and then how we are implementing change here. Biggest reason for training is to be quicker, more consistent, and more relevant with follow up. We've done really good at follow up with really hot customers and putting people through a process that gets them to move forward. What we want to get a lot better at is staying in touch with customers who may not be ready right now or who may just need more follow up than what we're typically used to dealing with. More consistent follow up because we're having people reach out from a year ago, 2 years ago. And we think if we're better at consistently following up with customers, it'll result in more sales and just growing the brand as we'd like to. So that's the reason. How are we doing that? The reason we were not so great at it in the past is two big reasons. One, the filtration. So like the actual statuses that you could put your leads under weren't super intuitive and super clear as to like where to categorize them, so people wouldn't use them, and then you just didn't know who to reach out to. So that's the biggest thing. You just didn't know who to reach out to do follow up. And then the second was you just didn't know how to. What certain situation do you reach out to this person? And what do you say? What's a word track or an email that you could send them that would be effective? So we've changed Zoho status, Zoho filters, design process filters. So like where they're at in the process, like have they gone through a design meeting so that you can better filter. And then we've created a library of follow-up protocol options and resources that you can send to. And I'm going to show you guys both of those. First, we're going to talk through what's being changed under the statuses, and then we'll go through and talk through protocol options and resources there. So here's your kind of go-to library for what follow-up will look like. Right here, we've defined each status. We've given you just different protocol based on like when do you move to the next status? When do you move a customer down a status or up a status? So we'll talk through that here in a second. So we essentially have 5 different statuses. You can see them here, and we are designating them. There's 2 different kind of categories. There's going to be personal follow-up, and then there's going to be this campaign only. So personal follow-up is going to be really you're touching the customer personally, whether it's through a call, text, email, voice memo, whatever. And there's 3 different statuses here. So we'll run through the statuses, each one of them, and then I'll just dig into each one of them a little bit here. So we've got follow-up 1, urgent. These are going to be really designated for new leads needing quick follow-up, consistent follow-up, or are just almost ready to roll. A couple key points here are leads will automatically be placed in this status. So if a customer walks in and their lead is generated, or they go onto our website, fill out a contact form, it's going to generate into Zoho automatically under this status. Okay. From the lead generation, we want to automatically do a personal follow-up touch. The only time they're moved out of the follow-up to status the only time they're going to move out of the follow-up status is if they have been personally touched. So the process would look like as soon as somebody reaches out or somebody touches base, we're going to send them a personal touch, whether that's the intro email or whatever. And then automatically, you're going to move them down to personal follow-up 2, consistent. So these different statuses, these 3 different personal follow-up statuses can be used in 2 different ways. You can manually put the person in whichever category you want to, just to tell you specifically who you need to be prioritizing. Or 2, if you've got a customer who it just really isn't reaching out, you can essentially use this as kind of as a tier. So let's say a customer reaches out, they go into this status, you follow up with them, you automatically move them down to follow-up number 2. Okay, so let's say you have 30 minutes and you want to follow up with somebody, or follow up with your follow-up number 2 consistent follow-ups. You go to your leads, you see that you reached out, they never touched base with you after that. So what you're going to do is you're going to touch base again, and automatically you're going to, it's manually, you're going to move them down to follow-up number 3. So you're ensuring that you've already got 2 touches. Now let's say a week later you get to your personal follow-up 3 status, and you see that this person hasn't touched base with you after 2 personal follow-ups. So you're going to send them another follow-up at the last follow-up, kind of a takeaway email, and we've got a template down below. And as soon as you send them your last follow-up, whatever that looks like, you're going to automatically move them down to campaigns only. The idea behind campaigns only is that they're still going to get they're going to get follow-up from the Van Guru team. It's just not going to be personal follow-up, if that makes sense. And then dead, you've got these are just people who are going to maybe there's been bad blood, maybe they sold their van and don't want anything to do with this, or for whatever, maybe we don't want to work with them for difficulty reasons. That's going to be people in this category, and they won't get any follow-up, not personal follow-up, and no campaign follow-up. Okay, so I've kind of gone through each of them. I'm going to just touch base on these bottom parts. You're going to move the follow-up number 1 to follow-up number 2 consistent. If A, you send the personal follow-up for each new lead. If B, the lead ignores 2 personal touches after the design meeting. So let's say a customer is really hot. They're going through the process quickly. They go after a design meeting. You touch base with them once, no response. Touch base with them again. After that, move them to follow-up number 2. Or move to lead follow-up number 2 if you determine the customer does not belong in this particular section for any good reason. Maybe they just are not ready and they told you that. Maybe they're just interested in components. This is where the discernment of the Van Guru comes into play. You don't have to use the process recommended to, but if there's, for whatever reason, you see a customer in there that just doesn't need to be in number 1, 2, or maybe even 3 follow-up, move them to campaign only if you discern so. So that is going to be follow-up number 1. Follow-up number 2 is designated for leads who need another personal follow-up, leads who touch base consistently every week or so and needing ongoing communication, and or leads who have gone through design meeting. Keep them on here for at least 2 weeks after design meeting. So let's say they've gone after, they've gone through design meeting, but they're not super hot, not ready to roll, and you don't want them in your number 1 priority list. Move them to here and keep them here for at least 2 weeks after the design meeting before you move them on to follow-up number 3. This is a really important category, one that in the past we just really haven't done very good with, as reasons I mentioned above. So this is really important, and we need to really focus on this category as well as this category. This one's also something we need to focus on. We'll talk about that in a second. So we really need to focus on this one. Move back to follow-up number 1 if A, they respond and you can just tell this customer's hot. They're maybe not ready to roll, but they're getting there and they're going through your process. Move them back up to follow-up number 2 so you can prioritize them. A good signifier that they're hot is if they schedule a design meeting. Not every time, but most of the times if they schedule a design meeting, they're pretty hot. You should move them back up to follow-up number 1. Move to follow-up number 3 if the lead still hasn't contacted you from the first personal touch. We discussed that earlier. Or if they respond and again you determine they shouldn't be in this category for whatever reason. Okay, so that's follow-up number 2, consistent. Follow-up number 3, occasionally, is for leads who are not dead but ready for consistent personal follow-up, were hot at one point and need some more follow-up, or were assigned / transferred to you and need follow-up. Okay, if the customer needs a follow-up every month or so, keep them in this category. So this is going to be customers who you maybe don't want to let go to the campaigns only section. Now, a key note here is even though they're not in the campaigns only, doesn't mean we can't send campaigns only to these 3 categories too. Okay, so they'll still get campaigns. But if you've got a customer, you really hit it off and you're like, okay, this customer may be ready in 6 months to a year if I stay consistent with them and touch them every month, every 2 months, every 3 months. Keep them in this category so you can go back and touch base with them every once in a while. Move to campaigns only, but make sure you send a takeaway email, which I'll show a template below. Essentially, the takeaway email is, it's essentially saying, hey, I'm following up with you consistently. It's going to change a little bit. I'm still here if you need me. Just won't hear from me quite as much. Kind of taking it away from them. Everybody wants what they can't have, so take it away from them nicely, respectfully. So move them if they don't respond to any personal follow-ups. And if they respond again, you determine they shouldn't be there. Or if they do follow up with you and they're in the category number 3 and they're like, this person's really hot, move them back up to 1 or move them back up to 2. So that's going to be your follow-up there. Campaigns only. These leads will be sent out consistent messages from the Guru team via campaigns, or we'll set it up to where Van Gurus can actually send those out individually. We've already talked about that. So that is your statuses. Again, just to quickly recap, status follow-up number 1, personal touch needed, follow-up number 2, and then follow-up number 3. Most important, these are ready to roll or hot, need consistent. Second most important, third most important, but guys, all of them are super important. That's what we're trying to do with this training is we need to really, and I'm the worst of this probably, is we really need to be good at following up with these people, not just the people who are hot, okay? So that's your statuses. I'm gonna quickly go through what's next, and we're really excited about this. The vision of the next section before we get into it is really, the second part of it is statuses weren't correct on Zoho, but also whenever you did have time, and you knew who to follow up with, you didn't always know what to follow up with. What do you say? What's relevant? What's the means that you do it? You send a text, you send an email. The section below is, we've broken it down per status, so personal follow-up number 1, follow-up number 2, number 3, and we've put in there, just brainstormed, what could follow-up look like in that particular section, okay? So that's what we've done. Plans and options for lead follow-up per status, okay? So under number 1, these are all options for you guys to be able to follow up with customers. Word tracks, templates for text, templates for emails. And what's beautiful is this is an ongoing resource. This is an ongoing library. So we come out with new videos, new emails, something else that works better. We can add and we can tweak this, okay? The coolest thing about this is it's a one-stop shop, okay? So follow-up number 1, urgent. Let's say you're like, okay, I got to send an intro email. What does an intro email look like? Well, you can click on it and you can actually just pull up an intro email that's already been pre-typed and copy and paste that over, or you can already just have that saved in your Google templates and send it their way. So that's something. If you want a follow-up call word track, okay, you can go here and just click here. It just gives you an idea of what could the structure of that call look like. We always want to have a reason to call. So what could that look like? If you want to follow up with ambassador opportunities, there's ambassador opportunities here. Send them an email and explain the process. You guys can read through all this. But this is your resource for, okay, you've got 30 minutes and you've got a list of 15 customers who you need to follow up with. And you're like, okay, what do I send? What are good resources? Come here. This is a good library for you guys. These are links to awesome videos. Use this. Just copy and paste that over and send them links that pertain to them, or podcasts. So anyway, that is your breakdown on the actual library. So kind of 2 different categories. This defines kind of the actual status and when you should move that person to a different status. This is your actual resource for options of what to follow up with, how to do it, and what to say. Anyway, we'll have more training on things as they change. But let's be diligent in doing really good follow-up, consistent follow-up, timely follow-up, and relevant follow-up